Yep. All right. All right. Well, welcome everybody. We have kids here from all over. So today we have Jimmy Sansone. Am I saying that right?
Yep.
Okay. Who at age 26 in 2015, he was a investment banker and just while looking for some shirts. And we always talk about this, how do ideas come to people? Usually through experience, and that's exactly what happened here was he was looking for a normal shirt. He was looking for a shirt that, didn't have rhinestones on it or something. So he decided to go ahead and launch his own brand. And it's called the Normal brand. And it has taken off over the last few years. And they have a place in Clayton. Is that right?
Yeah, we have one of our first branded stores in Clayton. Yeah.
Okay. And so he went to WashU, played football at WashU, I believe, and he's here to talk to you about his experiences as a kid from St. Louis that started his own brand.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. Is there any way I can tailor this in a way to be more helpful for the students? Like anything in particular that I could share from my experiences?
What do y'all think? What would you like to hear about?
What was like the hardest thing starting up when like just brand new business, you just started the business, you had to get your idea out there, you had to pitch it to people. What was the hardest part about that?
The hardest part's a good question. I would say that the hardest part of getting something off the ground is starting. That's the most difficult thing because you've kind of got an avalanche of things to take it from here to reality. There's a lot that has to get done, and it can be overwhelming if you look at it all together. So I would say that just getting the ball going at all, frankly, and taking that I don't know, that jump or that dive in so that you're kind of 100% invested, because I kind of screwed around for a few years and kind of started it and then kind of didn't. I'd be in and out, and you just can't get anything done like that. And so I think the toughest thing is just having the confidence in yourself and the people who you're doing it with. If you're doing it with other people, to take that initial jump and just go all in.
Like dedication and a strong mindset.
Yeah, those are two really important things. I think confidence in yourself is a really important one. So even if it's irrational confidence, I think that's a pretty important trait to have.
What else do you guys want to hear about?
I mean, I can, I know this isn't like a question and answer thing, even if it's just like parts of the story that would be, because we're about 5.5 years in now. But I could sort of talk about the beginning if that's more interesting. I just want to tailor it because talking to people, there's different value getting from different parts of the story.
That sounds good to me. Just like how I kind of like was asking earlier, like what was the hardest thing to start up? Like what was like the biggest project, so you can speak, that like really started get the ball rolling and started get things more out there, and maybe like sales and stuff too.
So are you guys all in, you guys are all kind of budding entrepreneurs trying to start your own thing and stuff like that?
Yeah.
So I'll just give you kind of a little bit of my background. So I grew up in a big family. I'm the oldest of 10 kids. So I've got my youngest brother is 15. So probably around your guys' age. So there's 17 years between us, 10 kids. And, but we just grew up in a family that was really sort of encouraged to be entrepreneurial. So I think you guys have a big leg up that you've already started doing this stuff. So we would do stuff. I do stuff with my brothers. One time I was 12, 13 years old, we just did stuff that was kind of outside the box. We ran summer camps when I was 12 and 13. We ran those summer camps every single summer until I got into college. I have younger siblings who still run the same summer camp. It's the first week of June every single year. That was a great way to make money. I I would seal driveways. During college, I would sell poinsettias, the Christmas flower. I would do that in between, like it was right when exams would start. I would do that in like basically around Thanksgiving through Christmas, would sell poinsettias. I actually sold that business to my brother, and now one of my other brothers runs that business. So I would say that those learning experiences and what you guys are doing as far as trying to start stuff now, and it doesn't need to be sophisticated at all. In fact, anything, a lemonade stand, anything where you have to kind of put yourself in front of people and be a little bit vulnerable to try to make some money on your own is a very valuable lesson to learn early in life. And so I did that throughout college. Then I took a job, like was said, I took a job in investment banking, which is a very kind of corporate, I don't know, high finance, a little bit stuffier. And I felt like I was dying a little bit each day. It just wasn't for me. So I left after a few years to start a business. And I was lucky that I had people. I think that that's why I said that kind of irrational confidence is really important, because I think that you need that self-confidence. And even if you don't have it, somebody has it in you. I think that's an important thing. So one of the things I would say that's important is if you have a dream or a goal of doing something that maybe goes against what the norm is of, doing your 9 to 5 or whatever it is, which would be probably a lot more accepted. You need to surround yourself with people who believe in that and who support that also. And that's something that I was just blessed with inherently, that I just had family and parents who believed in that vision, even at points when I didn't. And so, but going back to, so I left my job in finance and I tried to start a shoe company for a few years, and it was really sucked. It was not a good idea. And so that didn't happen. And then I spent some time, like, I wasn't making any money at this time, but I spent some time kind of applying to schools and trying to start stuff. Like I said, it was called Normal Shirts at the time. I was kind of starting Normal Shirts, but I really wasn't doing much. And I was kind of in and out, and I was applying for jobs. And it wasn't until I kind of backed myself into a corner where I thought I was getting this one job and I didn't get it. I thought for sure I was going to get hired, and because they told me they were hiring me, and they ended up pulling it at the very end. And then I didn't get into the number one school that I wanted to go to, where I felt like I had all my options stripped from me. And it was when that happened, it was kind of that burn the boats mentality, where it was like, okay, this Normal Shirts has to be something, or I've got a real problem. And that is when the Normal brand, it became the Normal brand. That's when I started seeing some movement. So I don't think that you necessarily have to actually have no options, but I do think that you have to put yourself in a mindset where you have no other options but to push your business forward, because you're going to run into problems every single hour of every single day. There's going to be an issue. And so to have that sort of a mentality of, they say to burn the boats, where there's no out, you have to just go through it, was for me personally the most important lesson that I've learned as far as the Normal brand's been around. And so now flash forward to today. So I run the company with my two brothers, and we've got about 30 or so employees, and we sell online at thenormalbrand.com. We have one store of our own in St. Louis, which will open more. And then we sell through other retailers, like third-party retailers around the country, like about 300 or 400 of them.
That's really cool. I even remember reading about the burn the boat, when that guy went to shore and he told his men, we have to fight. We're way outnumbered, but I'm burning these boats. We cannot go back.
Right.
And I think that's really cool, because that's kind of a commonality in a lot of successful entrepreneurs, is that you really got to devote your time to and have that desire to get to the place you want to be.
Yeah. I think it's the single most important thing. What else? What can I got any other questions?
You said that your shoe company failed. I was just wondering, what lessons did you learn from that failure, and then how did you implement that into Normal Brand and making that successful?
Yeah, good question. I think it goes with the biggest lesson, which is, in fact, it's something that I want to revisit with Norbrand, because I actually think the idea had some merit, but it was the idea that it just wasn't easy. And so at the beginning, I went to Italy and I was looking at all these shoe casings and like all this stuff. I just didn't know what I was doing. And I was like, oh, then this doesn't make sense. And my brother was actually with me. We laugh about it still today because we just had no idea what was going on. And so my response to that was, okay, this must not be the right fit. Like, because this must be a bad idea because this stuff isn't making sense to me and I'm overwhelmed. But now what I would say my response to that would be, if I was in a similar position, was that's to be expected. You should expect that this isn't going to come easy. You should expect that there's going to be struggle and you're going to have to learn a lot of stuff and you're going to probably look dumb for a while. Like, that is the sort of stuff that you should expect if you're trying to do something new. And so when you run into that, it shouldn't be as surprising. And so it shouldn't stop your, it shouldn't stop you trying just because immediately you run into a brick wall. You got to run into a brick wall you got to run into a lot of brick walls, in my opinion, for you to stop something that you believe in.
You got any suggestions on, like, if we were to run into a brick wall, like what's the best way to like look at the problem and solve it? Just like, obviously that's a very broad question, but like just any
Yeah, well, I
tip.
think, no, it's a good question. I think that the first thing, depending on what kind of business you're doing, I mean, can you get sales? Like, I think it's really important to try to sell something immediately. Like, don't spend years working on the perfect product. It doesn't exist. Get something out, like get something going, learn from your customers, because your customers are going to tell you which way to go. So if you can't get sales, then that's a pretty good indication that this isn't, your customer is going to be, they're your boss. They're the ones who are going to tell you where to go. So if you don't have a market for this thing, idea, service, whatever it is, then that's a brick wall that, probably isn't going to move. So I think my advice would be to try to get to your point, or try to get to a point where you can immediately test and see if you have a viable idea by way of sales.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me.
And for me, like, to give you an example with the Normal Brand, I was planning on waiting. I was gonna be waiting like another 6 and 9 months for my shirts to come out of the factory. And I got some really good advice from, I think, my dad, and another guy was like, just put your logo on a hat and start selling your hats. Like, let's see if this thing has something out. And I was trying to act like all like holier than thou. Like, that's not what I want to do. Well, now hats are a huge part of our business. And so, it was our logo slapped on a hat, right? But it was a proof of concept. I was able to see, like, okay, people like something about this story. This makes sense to keep, invest in this more.
Like how life works in mysterious ways. There's kind of those weird things that somehow really work out.
Yep. You're right.
I got a question. What's some that like we could be doing, like anyone in this call, what's some every day that we could be doing to increase just kind of that mindset you were talking about?
Do hard things. So I think it's important to test yourself. So I think one way to do that, very easy way to do that, is to exercise, to work out. That's hard, and it's something that I do that I don't want to do, but it's something that you kind of test yourself and you say, okay, well, I'm going to stick to this program for the next 6 weeks, and I'm not going to miss. And if you do that, then maybe you'll get the confidence of like, okay, and then when the next struggle or challenge comes to you, you think, okay, well, I just accomplish that challenge that I challenged myself 6 weeks ago, I bet you I could do something like this. And you start building this internal confidence. So the way that I do things now is when a tough thing comes in front of me, I think back at wins that I've had in the past, personal, professional, internal, whatever it is, wins, building that kind of mental strength in your head. And I think, okay, well, I was able to do that when I really put my mind to it. Why would this be any different? And I think that if you can kind of, because you're that mindset that you're talking about is really a muscle. And so you have to work on it. It doesn't just come overnight.
Like any other muscle.
Right.
Thank you.
Sure.
How did the partnership with Luke Combs come to be?
Yeah. Well, so we're huge fans of his. He's been wearing our stuff for a little bit. And then our sister is his day-to-day manager. And so she lives in Nashville. So we got really lucky there. So she lives in Nashville. I have another brother who lives in Nashville. And so we're there all the time. And we've been making inroads in the country music scene. And then he started wearing it. And we've gone to a few shows and hung out and stuff. And then it was like, hey, how about we do something together, a collaboration together where we can give all the proceeds to charity. And so this has been in the workings for a little bit. And it all just kind of happened to come together during this pandemic where we picked this charity, the Barstool Fund. And then where in just like a week's time, it ended up kind of blowing up into something has been pretty big for us.
Sick.
Like,
He said his computer just died. I'm in the same room with him.
Oh.
COVID problems.
So how did you manufacture enough of hats to get, I mean, your supply to meet the demand, like it came all in 1 week? How do you handle that?
We didn't. We sold out in the first day. And so what we've done is there was some talk of like, is this it or is that done? And then we said, no, let's try to do more and let's see if people will just wait for it. So we just built a little pop-up on our website that says, hey, these are pre-orders and these are going to ship to you in March. And even with that, I mean, we've sold thousands and thousands. So people, I guess, are willing to wait for it. I mean, it's a cool hat. It's $30 and it's all going to this. I think the story kind of resonated with people where they're willing to. We've had some complaints, but it is what it is. What else?
When will you know if it's a good time to expand? Like if you want to add something else, or are you good with what you're selling right now?
No, we grow every year, so we're always expanding. So for us, it's more when do you put the brakes on a little bit, and so we've got our women's line is expanding. We'll probably open another store in 2021, assuming the world goes back to some semblance of normal. And we were getting ready to sign a lease in Nashville in March of 2020 for a new store that we were really excited about. And then obviously the pandemic happened, so we had to pump the brakes on that. But we'll revisit that and maybe look at that as like a fall opening, hopefully. But yeah, we have tons of initiatives where we feel like we're at the very, very beginning stages of where we can hopefully be.
So like how, like obviously social media is probably a big part in your business, but like how often are you using it to like network with other people and all that stuff?
Network with other people. I mean,
Or
we use,
like just like get more exposure to your company. Like how do you go about that through social media?
yeah, I mean, it's our number one advertising channel. So Facebook, which owns Instagram. So those two platforms are where the overwhelming majority of our spend is going. When I say our spend, that's where we're paying to advertise to people. And so it's something that we have a full-time team on. within with that work exclusively for the Normal brand that work on that. And so, but I mean, you know, when we first started out, I think I was maybe spending $5 a day or something like that on Facebook. And, you know, now it's in the thousands. But, you know, that something you just kind of learn, you just kind of get better at. But it's a changing landscape, and it's a weird landscape. And it's something that we're trying to diversify out of a little bit, because Facebook and Google really kind of control everything. And Amazon to an extent, but we're not really that big on Amazon. And so that's something that we work on all the time on how do we diversify so we don't have so much reliance on these.
Could you like kind of walk through your story, how you kind of started and then how you got to where you are today?
Sure. I think I did the story at the beginning to that. That was kind of how it started. And let me see, where did I leave off? I guess so I kind of told you how I started it. And then I went to a trade show in August of 2015. And a trade show is basically where, like, I don't know, a zillion people get together and like you're trying to sell stuff. They have in all this different industries. So this is a fashion apparel specific trade show. I was in Chicago. It's called the Chicago Collective. So I went there with my brothers, and my dad went. And I remember praying the whole way up there, because I thought it's either going to happen or it's not. And we were meeting with retail around the country, and we ended up. It was great. We ended up opening up like 25 stores that were going to carry the Normal brand. And so that was able to get us some revenue in the door. And then I would say from that point on, it felt like we were sort of a business, because, you know, we were selling online, then we were selling through other retailers. And so with those things, we were able to finance future inventory that was to keep us going, to like from a cash flow perspective. And so we started in August of 15, we opened like, maybe it was 20 doors, 20 retailers. And now we've got like, I don't know, 300 or 400. And the wholesale business is still like 40% of our business. Direct is a bigger percentage, meaning online and through our store. But that our business to business revenue is still a very, very important part of our company.
So like pitching your whatever it is to like different retailers or like different stores and stuff around, like especially like local areas, is that like extremely important or pretty equal compared to like advertising on retail, like on online and stuff, and then also having the side of local business?
Yeah, I mean, they're all really important, but like our wholesale business, it used to be an overwhelming majority of our business, and then our direct business has grown to be the majority of all of our revenue. But for us, we look at our wholesale business, which is that through retailers, whether it's in the area or around the country, is very important. First of all, it's revenue, it's profitable, et cetera, but it also serves as marketing for us. So it grows the brand recognition, it's third-party validation. It's you walk into a store, you've never heard of the Normal brand, but you know who who Patagonia is, or who Vineyard Vines is, or Southern Tide, or Grayers, or whatever, name a million other brands, you know who they are. And you see us next to them, you try on one of our shirts, you like it, it's comfortable, it fits, you buy it, and maybe the next time you go to the normalbrand.com. And so that's how we have seen our business grow a lot, is through wholesale expansion. And then our direct business has been kind of a boomerang effect, where it is now outpaced the growth of our wholesale expansion.
So with like the trade show, does it cost money to be like one of the businesses that presents your product there? Is it like expensive or?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's expensive. but we started with only doing one,
Uh-huh.
and then we just grew each year how many we were doing. But we still take some away and bring some back. They're all dead right now because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So we haven't done any this year. And it'll be interesting to see what happens because we've pivoted to kind of a virtual trade show where our sales men and women are showing the line virtually. And if that's a viable option, then that would be great because those trade shows are a fortune. So I'd love to not spend the money on those
Yeah.
things. But, we'll see.
Um, what was like, when did you know that it was time to bring other people on board? Like when the work got kind of busy and you needed another set of hands.
Well, I can just tell you that the team makes everything better. So it was getting people involved. It was never just me. That would be a made up myth if that was a story that was out there. It was, I had siblings who were helping me from the very beginning. My parents would help me out, and then immediately I had somebody who would help me with graphic design. So it was you'll quickly find out that your company is going to be only as good as your team.
So I don't know if maybe somebody asked something similar to this already, but when you first started, what made you want to enter an industry so competitive like the clothing industry with so much competition?
Yeah, I don't know, that competition thing. I I had other ideas, and the answer I would get when I would start. Well, first of all, there's a few reasons. Number one, I'm obsessed with clothes, and I've been obsessed with clothes my entire life. I always loved clothes. And I didn't realize it until college, but like I would lay my stuff out. I would look at how the outfit looks together. I have kind of a weird thing with it. And I didn't realize that was a weird thing until I had roommates and stuff who like weren't in my family. And so I think I do have a real passion. Well, I know I have a real passion for clothing. I grew up in a family where, my dad and my grandpa wore suits, and I would just pay attention to pocket squares and things. Like, we don't make suits, but the attention to detail was something that I learned from a very early age. As far as the competition thing goes, show me an industry that's not competitive. I wanted to do real estate before I wanted to do clothes. And when I would go and I kept hearing about how competitive real estate is. It's just, the world is competitive. And so if you just kind of focus on what you're doing and what the value add you bring, I wouldn't worry as much about the competition. We certainly don't.
So I was reading about one of your articles, I think with WashU, and that J-Lo sponsored yours, gave you a shout out. How did that all come about?
Yeah, that was odd. That was years ago. It was crazy. I think we were in some like Entrepreneur magazine or something like that. And it probably wasn't even her. It was probably like somebody in her team or something like that who like retweeted it or did it on Facebook or something. But then what we did with that was, we jumped on it and we made a whole video where it was like me and my brother were trying to get a date or my brother was trying to get a date with J-Lo, but I was like with him. And so we filmed that like within a day, and it got picked up by like People magazine. It got picked up by like all these things. I think J-Lo ended up just taking down her post. She just didn't want to deal with us anymore. But for us, it got us a lot of good press. So it was, it was fun. That was like in 2016, I think.
So do you feel like all that, the good press has like expanded your business, like put you in places that you didn't think you would go, or has it made that much difference?
I don't know. Press is, I'm sure it's helped us. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's helped. I don't know to what extent. The only time that we have seen press drive sales in a meaningful way was this Fox News interview, the Fox and Friends interview. But that's probably not just press. That's also, it was a charitable cause. That's also, we were partnered with a huge country music star. So there are a lot of kind of stars aligning there, but that meaningfully moved the needle. But we haven't seen that other than in like on Sunday. So it's something that we think about, but we haven't actively gone after press. We don't have any PR or anything like a PR agency or anything that represents us, but it is something that we're like having talks about right now. I think you're muted.
So do you manufacture your own clothes, or like have you opened up a manufacturing plant, or?
No, but we contract out all of our manufacturers. Yeah, so everything that we do is custom designed by us. So threads, buttons, stitches, labels, bug tags, prints, colors, every single thread of anything that you get from the Normal brand is custom designed by us here in St. Louis. And then we contract out manufacturers around the world to get it done.
How long was it until you started seeing any, like, because I know you said first thing you did was just started putting like the Normal brand on a hat. How long was this till you started seeing like any profit from that?
Profit from
like, I guess just like
just a business profit?
Yeah, just like till you saw any return from an item of clothing with your brand on it.
I think we were profitable like in year 3. So yeah, it takes a little bit to get it going.
Sure.
What was kind of like the eureka moment that was like, wow, like this could actually like be something and like get really far?
You know, I don't know if there is one. I mean, you wake up and you doubt it in the morning, and then you just go to work and you just kind of you hope it grows, and you just work really hard. You just kind of, I haven't had one, and I don't feel like we're stable at all, but I think that that's kind of going to be my reality for life, which is just you're always kind of trying to prove yourself. So I think that that's kind of the mentality that we have.
Kind of like proving your dream.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Because it's a real privilege to be able to do this. So sometimes you're like, but we don't feel like we are in any way established.
I like that response a lot. Thank you.
Sure.
Can you give the students some advice? So some of our kids, they would like to conjure, they've stuff that they want to sell, but they need maybe manufacturers around the world. How do you find your manufacturers, and how do you know they're legit? And did you travel to these places, or
yeah,
can you give some insight on that?
Sure. Well, Google is number one. I mean, we're so lucky now because there's really no excuse to not be able to find anything, just because the internet has opened those borders in such a profound way. I would say that picking the correct factory is, for any product maker, is probably going to be one of the biggest challenges you have. And so I would expect, and this happened to us, where we had horrible factories at the beginning and you just make mistakes. And so what I would say more is more like top line advice is to limit your inventory risk. So don't go to your first factory on day one and say, I'm going to have 10,000 units and sink it all into that. Don't do that, because you're going to have problems with that factory. It's not a doubt in my mind you're going to have problems. And so you just want to make sure that the choices you make, that you can manage those risks. And so, but eventually, by experiencing it and by learning, and I could give a more specific answer depending, like on our industry, I could give more specific answers, but just more generally speaking, I think that in an inventory intensive business, you want to limit your risk in inventory. you want to pre-sell as much as you can, and then take orders based off of that. That answer the question?
Yes. Do you, I mean, I don't know, some of our kids are thinking, about getting some mechanisms made, and they'll have to find some factories to do that. So I don't know if you guys have any questions on that.
Yeah, so like since you're saying like factories will like they'll all have problems, will there like be factories where you can like you won't have to get like 1,000 versions of your product from them? Like can you get like 250 or 500, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you gotta, I would say that a important skill you gotta have, and you have to, is you gotta sell everybody. So you gotta sell a factory who only wants to deal with companies who are making, whatever, 1,000 of something. You gotta convince them that if they take a shot on you to do 250, that it's gonna be worth their while because you know what you're doing. And even if you don't know what you're doing, you convince them that you know what you're doing, because you're going to come back in a few months and you're going to order 500. And then the next month you're going to order 1,000. Those are the types of things you got to sell yourself, not just to your customers. You got to sell yourself to future employees. You got to sell yourself to vendors. You got to sell yourself to the media. You got to sell so like people who aren't involved. So founders who don't do sales, I don't understand that, because you have to be in sales if you want to start your own business. You have to be.
Kind of like that line, perception is reality. Like how you make others perceive yourself and your business is really how your business will grow further in the future.
Yeah,
Because
yes,
I mean,
I think
networking is huge, and yeah.
All right, well, we only have about 4 more minutes left, I think. Does anybody have any other questions, or Jimmy, do you have something you want to throw out there to wrap things up?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay. All right, well, thank you for taking the time to come in and talk. We sure appreciate it.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank
My
you.
pleasure. Good luck.
Can we take a pic before we take off? We want to throw this out there on social media so we can advertise our programs.
Yeah, no problem with me.
All right.
Oh, are you taking a picture or something?
Yeah, I'm going to take a pic here in a second. All right, we ready? Are you ready, Jay? All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3. All right, very cool. All right, well, thanks again for the time. Appreciate you coming in.
Okay.
Thank
you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.